Okay guys, so today I'm going to teach you about perspective. And perspective in art is what allows us to take something and make it look three-dimensional, even though we're drawing it on a two-dimensional surface. Now, perspective wasn't always around. It was something that was actually relatively new, and it really came about, we usually give it credit to coming about around in the Renaissance. So the reason I want to show this to you is because if I were to ask you right now to, let's say, draw a cube, what most people would do is draw something like this. Now, sure, this is a good shortcut, but this doesn't actually teach you why you had to draw it like this. Then when you do this, you don't really have full control. Like, do you know how to draw this cube so you see the bottom and not just the top? Do you know how to draw this cube so instead of seeing this side, you see the other side of the cube? Do you know how to do this without making the cube look like it's see-through? Right? It's kind of a cool optical trick because you can see the cube from many different directions, but this doesn't actually support or teach you how to draw with proper perspective. So with perspective, we're going to flip this over. We always start with a horizon line. And a horizon line, this represents our eyesight. So exactly where our eyes are, this line represents this. What I always tell students is that this line, if you think of standing on the beach and looking out into the ocean, and you see a line where the ocean meets the sky, that line is not real. It's an imaginary line where we see two things coming together. And it looks like a line because it's so far in the distance that our eyes can't actually see what is there. And so we see this kind of what looks like a line, but it's really not there. It's imaginary. Now this is why for so many years people thought the earth was flat. They thought that this line was actually real and that if they sailed to it, then the world would just kind of flip over and that'd be it. That'd be the end of the world. But now we know this is an imaginary line. And this line again corresponds to where your eyes are. And once you've done the horizon line, on this line you're going to draw a dot. It doesn't really matter where, but this dot corresponds to directly where you're looking. So if this is where your eyesight is, so let's say for me I'm 5'4", this is around like a 5-foot level. If you're a really tall person, maybe it's around a 6-foot level, but this dot represents exactly where your eyes are looking, that direct point, and it's called a vanishing point. Now we're doing 1 point, and this is why it's called 1 point perspective, because there's only 1 point, because we're staring straight at something when we're looking directly at it, so both of our eyes are looking in one direction, so it's 1 point. After this, let's just draw, we're going to do a basic cube. So we're going to draw below the horizon line, and we're going to just draw a square. And we're drawing the face of the square because if we are looking straight out at something, we're going to see the front of it, the face. So here is the face of a cube. Now we're going to take the 3 corners closest to the vanishing point, and we're going to do dotted lines. The reason you want them to be dotted is because if it's a dotted line, that's telling us that these are not going to be hard, real lines. This is just kind of guidelines. So you have dotted lines going to the vanishing point from these 3 corners. The reason you don't want to do this 4th one is then that object would become see-through, and we don't want that. We want it to be a solid object. Now you're going to draw parallel lines to the 2 farthest edges that are the closest to this vanishing point. So we have this top line here, and we're going to draw a line parallel to this. So this line goes like this, and now we're going to draw one right above it. So you can see that these are parallel. They would never intersect. That's really, really important. And this line, we just drew it however high up you want to on these guidelines. And how high up you draw it is going to represent how big you want this object to be. And then from here, I'm going to draw a line going straight down. So then this line becomes parallel to this line. So again, these 2 lines would never meet. And then we're going to connect the dotted lines in between them and down here. And now here is my cube. So from here you can actually erase these dotted lines because you no longer need them. But now we have a cube that is going towards the vanishing point. And so we can see it kind of extends all the way there. And so that way it shows that this cube, even though in reality it has all the same size sides, that here we're actually drawing it with the back being slightly smaller. But it's following these perspective guidelines. So now let's draw the exact same cube on top of the vanishing point, up here. So we'll do the same thing, we'll draw the face of the object, and now we're going to draw these guidelines from the 3 edges closest. And if you can't do straight lines like this right away, then use a ruler. Then we're going to draw our parallel line, this and this, and then draw this one across. So then this one is parallel to this point. And then we will outline those dotted lines. So this is the big difference. If an object is above the vanishing point, meaning it is above your eyesight, you're going to see the bottom of it. Which makes total sense, right? If something is taller than you, you can't see the top of it, you can only see the bottom of it. And if something's below your eyesight, you can see the top of it, but you can't see the bottom of it. So this is 1-point perspective. And I'll show you some examples of what this is going to look like when you actually develop a full drawing using perspective. This is typically used more in architectural drawings. You're not necessarily going to follow these exact guidelines when you're drawing like people or things like that. It's really used when you're drawing big areas like a room or a really large outdoor space. This is when you use these guides. But the main thing is, no matter what I draw on this page, everything has to go towards this vanishing point, because this is where everything vanishes, it kind of disappears there. And that's what makes everything look very realistic and three-dimensional, and that it's actually within the correct eyesight. So this is 1-point perspective. Show you 2-point perspective. This is a bit more challenging, but it starts off in the same way. So here you're going to start off with your horizon line again, but this time instead of having 1 vanishing point, you're going to have 2. And these represent your 2 eyes. Because we do this often. We're looking at something, but we have our periphery. So I can see what's on the right and I can see what's on the left, but I'm not really looking at the center. My head's facing there, but I'm looking kind of in both directions at the same time. And so when you start here, you're going to have a 2-point perspective. You have to actually start with whatever you see straight in the middle, and it usually is going to be an edge. So with 1-point perspective, we saw the face of an object. With 2-point perspective, you're going to see the edge of an object first. So to draw that, we're going to just draw a line going down the middle. It doesn't have to be in the middle, but just to show that. Then from the top, we're going to do dotted lines to one vanishing point, and then to the other. And the reason I started here in the middle is because what it's showing us is that everything to the right of this line is going to go towards this vanishing point, and everything to the left of this line is going to go to this vanishing point. Okay, so now we're going to turn this into a building. And to do that, we're going to do, again, parallel lines. So we have one line here, and we're just going to draw a parallel line right here, and a parallel line right here. And then we're going to connect the dotted lines. But to make this look more believable, we now need to erase this horizon line that we drew on the very first thing that we drew, so that it's not going through our building. And so now here is our building. So let's say you want to add things onto this, like a door. So let's say I want to have a door right here. You don't want to just draw a door like this. This would look incorrect, because this line, if I just drew an imaginary line across, it misses that vanishing point. So instead, rather than drawing right away this door, start from your vanishing point and just draw an imaginary line that you think would kind of extend toward where the door would be. And then from here, just drop down those parallel lines and then outline right there. And same thing if you wanted to do a window. Let's do a window on this side. So don't go in and just draw a square, because again, these bottom lines would not go towards the vanishing point. So instead, draw a dotted line that goes to the top of a window, draw a dotted line that will go to the bottom of a window, and then drop down your parallel lines and connect those dotted lines. And now you can see this is why it looks like proper perspective. Everything here is going towards this vanishing point, everything here is going towards this vanishing point. And then from there you can kind of build on and create more and more structures. It's a little more complex just because you always have to keep in mind which vanishing point you're going towards, and you just kind of always have to check things. So even though the beginning might seem a little more simple, 1-point perspective is definitely where you want to start when you're beginning perspective drawing.